Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hope you're having a tremendous Monday. Today's topic, brothers and sisters, is transitioning and spiritual time management. Again, that's transitioning and spiritual time management. Now, I want to give a little bit of a background of why we're going to talk about this. Being in the social services business, one of the things that we have to deal with, not just so much for the people that we were serving back in the day, but for our own well-being, was being able to delineate time and emotional surplus, if you will, to be able to transition from very difficult situations, very difficult scenarios, if you will. We can talk about trauma, depression, sadness, all of these things, and even sometimes happiness, success can be a very difficult transition for some people, other people around them. I thought it'd be interesting today to actually speak on some of those things, not so much from a personal space, but being able to help people align what that really means. And when I say alignment, I mean a positive alignment, sometimes to help us unlock some of the things that hold us back or unlock some of the feelings that we have. You know, all too often I get calls from people who are dealing with things. Now, I'm not saying they're problematic or anything, but they're dealing with things. I think all of us have some kind of monkey on our back, something like we would like to get off our chest. And, you know, we spend time, you know, days, months, sometimes years, sometimes entire lifetimes trying to figure out appropriately what that looks like. How do we get from point A to point B? That point A to point B has a lot to do with the whole scope of transitioning. Now, I worked as a transition counselor, consultant for the NFL for a number of years, and that was a different type of transition, but not so much. Talking about young men in the NFL who go through a plethora of problems before they become successful. When they become successful and they leave the league, and those problems are still waiting at their door. It doesn't matter how much education you had, or how much money you made, how much prestige you made. Those problems were innate. They stayed with you. And just recently, I had a very good friend of mine talk about these scopes of promise. Sorry about that, brothers and sisters. I meant to cut this off. But talking about this whole phenomenon of how we transition, this whole phenomenon of how we grow personage in terms of our own growth and development, but also this whole idea about spiritual time management was something we haven't talked about. I've alluded to it, but we haven't talked about it. So what I would like to do today is kind of break it up and talk about the relationship between transitioning and spiritual time management. These days, I think it's overlooked because we are carrying the burdens of things that are new. We have a newness to some of the things that we are dealing with. We have a new vocabulary, if you will, Omicron, COVID, Delta, things like that. We have a new relationship in terms of our work relationships. Some people are working, some people are not working. Some people are backed out of the workplace because they feel like it's not a spiritually healthy place for them to be. And then you have people just say, wait a minute, the world is not in a proper vision for me, and I have to step back, and I got to find value for it. So today, we're going to talk about transitioning, and we're going to talk about spiritual time management. All right? So outside of that, I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. We're going to start the show a little bit earlier today because we got a lot to talk about. All right? I'll see you back here on the set. Satana, let's get rolling. All right, thank you for coming back, and I want to introduce some of my heroes right here, brothers and sisters, right here. This is, of course, Ella Fitzgerald and my main man, Louis Armstrong. Let me tell you guys a little about these two. particularly with our topic today. Satana said tie it in. I wasn't going to, but I am going to tie it in for you. These two people behind me are icons in the jazz world and in the entertainment world, period, hands down. I saw a movie clip of Louis Armstrong, and he was in a movie clip with Paul Newman, the actor Paul Newman, and Sidney Poitier. And Sidney Poitier and Paul Newman were acting as jazz musicians. Now, let me just say, it was the worst I've ever seen in terms of guys trying to play jazz. They didn't know, and they were playing, faking it pretty badly. And Louis Armstrong comes in with his band, and he plays music like a Pied Piper. And he walks over, and this jazz club transforms, brothers and sisters, to something that is wonderful. Even the actors, Sidney Poitier and Paul Newman, recognizes that he is playing spiritual music. And his partner in crime, Ella Fitzgerald, has always had a voice, brothers and sisters, that when she sings, it sings above the trials and travails that she's had. These people grew up in the worst of Jim Crow. They grew up in the worst of Jim Crow. And every time I see them, it gives me a lift. Let me tell you what a kind of lift. It gives me a spiritual lift whereby I can look around the world and go, you know what? I'm in a very blessed place. Even if it's not exactly where I want to, I'm in a very blessed place. When I hear Louis Armstrong, the same as when I was a kid, I would get excited. And Ella Fitzgerald singing would get me excited because it took my spirit to another place. Now, we're going to be talking about spiritual time management and transitioning, but let me break this out first clear. This is not a religious lesson. This is not a khutbah, okay? This is not the minbar. This is not Friday. This is not Friday prayers. We are having a larger conversation. Just so you know, everything spiritual doesn't have to be religious, okay? That's why I want to make that point. This is not religious time management. This is spiritual time management. Now, if you're a person of faith and you practice religion, of course, there's a nice marriage between the two. But for this one, I want to keep it open. I want to keep it broad, okay? So before we get started, let's get in our space. We got some stars in the building, better known as the Shout Out family, the Shout Out Show soldiers. Who we got today? We got Sister Ree. What's going on, Sister Ree? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for joining us on the platform. Wonderful dinner. I just want to throw that out. Wonderful dinner. I actually had it for breakfast this morning. Put some eggs with it. Wonderful. Appreciate you. Shout out to Juwan and shout out to Brother Derek. Thank you so much for joining us. Next up, Altaf Rashid, Mr. 6 o'clock, my main man from Canada, our Canadian ambassador to the show. What's going on, brother? Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for coming to the platform. We appreciate you and your contribution, sir. Hope you're having a lovely day. Next up, Eric. That's the white man. Eric. We're gonna call you Eric. Brother Eric, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And we hope you get something out of this presentation. Next up, Sister Tana, next up. Uh-oh. Every once in a while we have some tech. Oh, there we go. We got Sister Ika coming all the way from Depok, Indonesia. Thank you so much for joining us. Peace and blessings to you and your family. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for your time. We know that it's way early over there in Indonesia, but we appreciate you joining us. Thank you, and you are always welcome to the platform. Next up, we got Brother Johnny L. Thomas, my little brother. What's going on? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I know you know who this is behind me. My heroes, I know I played their music in our travels, in our journey over 30 plus years. I know you've heard some Ella Fitzgerald and you heard some Louis Armstrong, but I appreciate you joining the show. Peace and blessings to you and your family as always. Hugs to those babies of yours. Next up, we got Brother Mark Kennedy. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My main man, Mark. Jelani Locks, but I call him Mark Kennedy, a beautiful brother out of the Virginia area, Northern Virginia area, doing big things with the Virginia Democrats. Hopefully we're going to get that house back, inshallah, soon, soon, Brother Mark. We appreciate you. Thanks so much, man. And peace and blessings to you and your queen and your family. All right, next up, Bilal Salahuddin. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. What is a show without Brother Bilal and Sister Sonia Salahuddin Dalton. Shouts out to you and your family, brother. I know everybody in your family that's come on the show. All right, we're going to get through it. Next up, of course, we have a consultant producer. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Satana Whitfield. How you doing? Thank you so much for joining the show. We appreciate you. And let's go ahead and get to this. So the idea behind this concept, brothers and sisters, transitioning. One of the things that's happened, I would say, literally not in the COVID years. I would say going back to 2015, America and the world has had a very, very difficult time trying to do transitions. There are a number of hypotheses of why we have difficulty doing transitions. One of which is we have a lot of different mediums. The idea of social media for a lot of people presents engagement, it presents communication, it presents I'm having a human experience, and it's not that, brothers and sisters. You are talking through the X's and the O's, the ones and the zeros, as we say, the algorithms of the computers, but it fostered a community whereby things could be put out, but they're not really put out in a way that it has a communal understanding. When I say communal understanding, this is what I mean. I mean that basically a community, like Facebook had a community, Instagram didn't necessarily have a community, and what it did was it centered a lot of stuff on the individual broadcasting information to the general public. That is an interesting thing because that is not the way that we naturally transition. Transitions have certain segments. Number one is an end goal. And when we talk about an end goal, it's not the end goal, but it's an end goal for that particular activity. And it's also a roadmap. I would like to say that we have roadmaps, but the roadmaps are really, really not like they used to be. The roadmaps now are sort of like the GPS you put in your phone and you say the name, the Siri. But it's not the same as back in the day when you would take a atlas and have to open up the pages and interact and find the grids and longitude and latitude and all those things and look up. It's not that anymore, brothers and sisters. We have barriers, if you will, to our transitions, and the barriers are heightened expectations. There's nothing wrong with having expectations, brothers and sisters, with a transition, but if you know that you do not possess, hear me now, the ethic, if you will, the ethic to pursue it, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, and worse, setting up people around you for failure who somehow summarily count on you. It could be your family, it could be your mother, father, your co-workers. You know, this is the thing that I want us to focus on. Transition is natural. It's going to happen with or without you in some regards. Death to life, life to death. That's going to happen. You have nothing to do with that. But the special piece, brothers and sisters, that we call life lived. As I speak to my clients, I say, what is the aspect of life lived? What do you want that to be? What is the value of a life lived? If it's lived in 10-year increments, what is that supposed to look like? What should I expect? What skills are we going to have to put in here to firm this whole idea up, to make sure that the house is steady? How are we building that foundation? A lot of times we don't look at that. We look at the end goal. I call it's the cheat mechanism. We look at the end goal. And in that cheat mechanism, brothers and sisters, we move away from things that I call important, like spiritual time management. When you cheat a process that has to do with your life, you lose something. You lose the capability, brothers and sisters, to frame the things that are important. Not that you can say, hey, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to be, the top of my class, but you frame the idea that I can go to college. You frame the idea that I can be an entrepreneur. And in that framing, it's become more and more important, brothers and sisters, that we step back in some regards and start talking about that spiritual time management. Many of you have heard me talk about cognitive surplus. And cognitive surplus was the fact that we have so many things going on around us that are vying for our attention. Here, let me clear that up. We have so many things around us vying for our attention that we don't understand that we are losing cognitive surplus. We're giving it away to other people. That little bit, that hour that you have out of a 24-hour day, We are giving that away to people. People are obviously, clearly vying for that time to occupy your mind with their product, with their thoughts, with their policies, with their religion, whatever it can be. And you got to hold on to that. But the spiritual part of it is this part. The fact that the spiritual part connects to overall what our wellness quotient is going to be. When I say wellness quotient, it means the ability to do things like heal, like forgive, like pause, not so much pause for the cause, brothers and sisters, but I mean literally step back and reassess what the world looks like to you. What you like, what you don't like, these things are extremely important. All right? So we're going to come back here after a quick message. We're going to talk a little bit more about spiritual time management. I'm going to lay it out, and you let me know what you think. All right? We'll be right back after this message. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear? I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just gotta hear "Don't Get the COVID."
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
All right. Little note, brothers and sisters. They're talking about the peak is coming soon, but until we get that point, please be smart, brothers and sisters. Wear your mask, social distancing. If you're not going to take the vaccine, think about others. Don't be in other people's faces and things like that. Wear the mask, okay? Just can't be walking around. And if everyone else is taking a vaccine, be worried about how your body feels. Take your temperatures and things like that. Don't assume that it's something less than it can actually be. The thing right now is be extremely diligent during this time with COVID, and we hope that we will see that surge go down. Inshallah. So let me continue this conversation about spiritual time management. Let me break this down. I had a conversation this week with a very good friend of mine, business associate, and he was very, very down about the fact that he and his family members had some turmoil. And it happens a lot. Families over money, over who take care of mom and dad. It could be a plethora of things. I'm not going to get into that. But what he felt was he didn't have the support from one side of the family, and they made a decision, and it impacted him in a certain way. It wasn't just the decision, but it impacted him because it was a larger referendum on, are we family or not? Are we a cohesive unit or not? Are you the same person that I grew up with my whole life, and we're now having, I want to say, disparities or differences that are glaring that somehow make me feel spiritually unnerved a lot more than it actually was. This happens a lot, brothers and sisters. And it has a lot to do with the fact that in many times that we deal with trauma or unexpected things, the ability to move, not move on, but just move, reposition where we are in our trauma or in our situations, whether it's happy or sad, just enough to be able to assess what it is. Now, there's also spaces in here for if there are issues about mental health. This is a real thing these days. The issue about mental health is extremely real. But sometimes it's not about mental health. It's about a spiritual acuity, if you will, that we have to create space for us to grow, evolve. Like you take a cork off a drink, let's say a non-alcoholic wine. But you take the cork off, and one thing that happens is that it has to breathe. What we've lost in the last several years is the ability for people physically to get around one another, to inhale and exhale. To inhale and exhale. Why? Because now we have COVID. You inhale, exhale, you got to make sure it's 6 feet to the right and to the left of you. But that scope, brothers and sisters, is something that's extremely important, because spiritual wellness, if you will, is a different type of intelligence. It's a different type of emotional intelligence. And I think we don't talk about it enough. We are people who become extremely proficient living with trauma until it becomes a situation where it just boils out. That it evolves itself or presents itself as something that's entirely ridiculous. That people live on the fringes of not looking at spiritual time management, dissuading others from looking at it, because the immediacy of emotional imbalance is what they want you to see. And even more than the emotional balance they want you to see, they want you to look at their emotional balance and say that it's logical, that it's rational. You know, I was reading one of the old journals of someone who's a slave. And I thought one of the most amazing things that this person said about their slave owner that scared them was that the slave owner was soulless. That the slave owner kept propagating this God of mercy and somehow thinking that they were aligned the same. That the religiosity that the person was telling us can only be enforced through violence, can only be enforced through law. And the idea that it was illegal to believe any other religion other than what they were telling you. To present something different as opposed to the canon that was given back in the day is something that could really, really get you hurt. And these people who suffered under slavery endeared themselves, and in fact, not just endeared themselves, but excelled on the whole idea that we need spiritual impetus. We need spiritual awareness and clarity. This is the thing that allows them, brothers and sisters, to build community. We right now have a very disjointed community. That goes without saying. But the reason we have a disjointed community is because all we think about these days is problems. Our lives have been built around the fact the last 2-3 years that every day you get up that there's a problem. If I ever had a problem with Donald Trump, it was the fact that, damn man, every day it was something with you. And you being the representative of the United States at the time, it just permeated down. Because there were not people around him who were problem solvers. We became a people that had to constantly wake up in the morning, and by the time you went to bed at night, you were constantly putting out fires. That, brothers and sisters, is tiring. It wears you out. It burns you out. If you want to know why we can't have teachers, of course there's a staffing shortages, but teachers are not engaged on the idea that you need spiritual time management. They'll give you time to do lesson plans. They'll give you time to prepare your room, to prepare your spirit, to look in the eyes of these children and address their needs on a day in, day out basis. And when you're a teacher, you're 24 hours, especially during the school year. You are 24 hours. And I've said this before to several consultants. I said, you know, the spiritual component of teaching is huge. This is why we forego, or many people forego, I did, larger salaries, better health care, opportunities for promotion. It's because this spiritual aspect of being able to help children was enormous. You couldn't shake it. So now we have a space, brothers and sisters, where we're not doing that. And I worry, just like a lot of folks, but I have high hopes that with this whole scenario of COVID as it goes away, that people will have a different type of clarity. And it will lead them to these spaces where you go, you know what, I must have spiritual time management. I must sit back on a daily basis or 3 or 4 times a week to appreciate my agency, to appreciate my space in the world, to acquire, if you will, to acquire new knowledge. Things that bring wellness, but also bring growth to my spirit. And to go back and tie it in, when we talk about transitioning, brothers and sisters, this is a huge part of it. We need to learn the skill sets to take ourselves out of situations and put ourselves in new situations. At times I'm jealous of, my people like my grandfather and grandfather before him and the slaves. I respect them. But I respect them more, brothers and sisters, because they had more to deal with. That the complexity of slavery made their whole idea of having a spiritual compartments, if you will, it made them that much more effective. That people, brothers and sisters, sometimes take for granted what this thing actually is. This thing, brothers, is this spirit inside of you. We call it the qalb, the heart, Arabic, the heart. But what's in the heart? You can cut the heart open, if you will, it's muscle. But if you look into the soul and the spirit of the heart, it's something totally different. It's transformative. And have we as a society somehow downgraded or gotten away from things that are transformative to us, away from things that are transactional? I do not like transitions that are transactional. I like transformative. I like to believe that my spirit will guide me to this thing. And as a believer, I like to believe that my spirit and my religion will guide me through this thing, but help me appreciate it. And if it's a good thing, share it with other people. So let me wrap up because we're almost out of time. Number 1. The idea of transition is that we want it to be transformative, not transactional. Meaning, when you frame your transition, brothers and sisters, be honest with yourself. Be brutally honest with yourself. If the goal is over here, then you must honestly look at yourself and look inside yourself and say, not that I can do it, but do I have the ethic to maintain the effort to get to it? Do I have the effort, if it doesn't work out for me, to keep on working? These things are important. And in terms of spiritual time management, do I have the courage to tell the world around me in some regards, stop. This is me. That's you. This is my spiritual space. That's whatever space you want it to be. And to be firm and consistent about it. And not be mealy-mouthed about it. Tell people that this is what I'm doing. That this agency right here is not to be messed with in any regards, in any situations. To not let people bring their mess into not just a safe space, hear this, but making it a sacred space. Think about that. So listen, we're going to get out of here. I appreciate you guys. It's a Monday. I hope I didn't hold you too long. I want to give a shout out to some football folks. I want to give a shout out to the LA Rams. Shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs. Shout out to the Bengals. And shout out, of course, to who else? Oh, Cincinnati Bengals. Congratulations on your victory, playoff victory. I want to give a shout out also to my main man, Troy Vincent. He is the VP of football operations for the NFL, who is probably working themselves in a tizzy. Thank you so much for reaching out, little brother. I appreciate you. Mary Moss says, hello, SOS family. How you doing, Mom? Good to see you on the show. And if there's anybody else I missed, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't. But I hope everybody will revisit this, hopefully. And I'll do it a little bit, maybe even a more technical thing. We'll set up a classroom and we'll have some slides and people can take notes. But I want you to start thinking about transitioning, what that means for you. Not getting from point A to point B, getting from this idea to that idea, move from this emotion to that emotion. Break it down like that. And what will be the parameters of your spiritual time management? How do we invoke that? How do we protect it? Moving from a safe space to a sacred space. All right. So let's wrap up. I want to give a shout out. That's right, my little brother says, spiritual time management takes body, mind, and spirit working in unison to develop a healthy, productive life. That's right. And to protect their life. Afraid of what others might say or do. A fear, part of transitioning. Absolutely. You have to have deaf ears when you're doing transitions too. But thank you so much for that, Jay. And Mama Son, I appreciate you. So let me go ahead and get into the wrap up. We're going to shout out to www.befinanciallyindependent.com. Again, that's www.befinanciallyindependent.com. You can call 202-508-3780. Again, that's 202-508-3780. If you're thinking about a quality graduate level education, brothers and sisters, look no further than Bayon Islamic Graduate School in Claremont, California. Again, that's Bayon Islamic Graduate School. You can go to bayononline.org. Again, that's bayononline.org, offering programs in Islamic education, Islamic studies, Islamic leadership, and of course, a Master of Divinity program with the focus in Muslim chaplaincy. Make sure you check them out. As well, brothers and sisters, we want to give a shout out to our new partner, ushub.com. Again, that's ushub.com. I'm telling you guys, these guys are doing big things, and hopefully we're going to have a partnership that's fruitful, and you're going to see some bigger things for myself, the Shout Out Show, wherever I'm going, I'm going to take y'all with me. You know, that's the way we roll. That's the way we rock. But make sure you go to ushub.tv. Again, that's ushub.tv. Support that process. We're not going to get a whole lot of people trying to develop a meaningful or effectuate a Muslim streaming service. It's going to start out Muslim, but it's going to be about the artists and the community and the environment and culture overall. So I have a lot of upside support for Ushub. And of course, we want to give a shout out to, you guessed it, Convenient Urgent Care. With 3 locations in the Houston area, Cypress, Pasadena, and Houston on Parker Road, make sure Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. All right, so make sure you check them out. You go to convenienturgent.com. Again, that's convenienturgent.com. Make sure you check them out. All right, so that's it. Our last bit of business, brothers and sisters. I'm going to get out of here, but we want to make sure we give a shout out to our Ramadan partner. We're going to give them some love earlier this year. They're back and they're supportive. Let's give a shout out to Olive Branch Muslim Family Services. Sultana, if you...
There you are. I know you're looking at your screen going, that's a good-looking black man. And you're right. I'm Preacher Moss, and you're not. Today I want to talk about Olive Branch Muslim Family Services, better known as the people who help people. And I need you to help the people who help people so they can continue to, you guess it, help people. Get it? Got it? Good. Olive Branch Muslim Family Services. Action you can see, compassion you can feel. Graphic now.